Welcome to TradeNMI.com. This is John's Reporters for the 24th. Wow, what an exciting day it was the other day. NVIDIA, everyone was so excited. It was moving everything through the roof. And of course, that's a perfect opportunity to sell into all that new fun money coming in. And just uh, once that started, as I pointed out, uh, it gets a little tight when some selling starts because there's not enough room in the exit. And we saw this developing on the short time frames, and then by the 50K, it had completely flipped. And sure enough, blew through the ABM yellow all the way down to the uh, ABM white, well, actually, this is 76% right there, and it would, well, we should expect it to move towards the ABM green and that, which is slightly below the 76, completely in a sell signal here with the crossover of white, magenta below the 33, and that didn't take long for that to start to cave pretty quickly and potentially shake out, move towards almost going negative. That would definitely create a bias. Of course, when you have this kind of drawdown, usually get buyers who think that they've got a deal and they're going to try and push that back up. Of course, below the ABM, still short bias, and definitely below the 76, increasing short bias. That's an easy way to look at it from there. And then you have the ABM yellow and magenta in between there that you can use as secondary ones. And actually, I'll go ahead and put that up so you can see what those numbers are. Um, the green is all the way down to 5260 range. None of this is a real surprise. Of course, they're going to say, well, there was some positive data for the economy, and I think that's a relative one. The reality is that things are becoming more and more difficult because the Fed is becoming more and more hamstrung. It's like they can jawbone all they want, but at the end of the day, rates aren't where they should be relative to the economy. You've got increase in prices. Yes, earnings look great and everything because inflation has elevated the cost of those things, but the replacement cost on all of them is going to have a further and further drawdown of what the capabilities are. And then you look at the consumer being squeezed, and more evidence comes out on that. And you get that classic indication of what happened in the 70s. And uh, will it start to escalate, or will they be able to stave it off? Of course, they're going to try and goose the economy as much as they can, given an election year. Um, Whether that's going to be sufficient enough, eh, unlikely. And again, treasuries where they're at, it's just not realistic. So it just boggles my mind why you would want to buy a treasury at this particular state, but that's okay. And you can see the continued plummet in oil. Not a positive sign from an economic standpoint because it's an indication that there just isn't enough demand to justify it. Now, it does certainly help in the rate of inflation situation, but there's going to be a floor to that simply because of the inflation and probably getting close to it at this particular stage. What we've done is filled in positive extremes going all the way back to this yellow print right there from the extreme histogram right down here. Not horrible, but better than the tightening supply, which meant that the economy was still growing at a considerable clip. Not the case anymore. You would think that might help the euro out, but at the end of the day, it's a reflection that there may be a move towards negative growth going forward into the Eurozone as well, and that's not a surprise. Gold, that slowed down the move simply because the inflation is not running hot, but that doesn't change the fact that you're still having continued debasement. So I don't see the gold dropping all that much. Bitcoin and them also filling back into the big move that they took prior to it. And ETH, of course, big excitement with the approval, but of course you sell the news, you buy the rumor, sell the news. There it is. Kind of classic. Here it is from a 50K standpoint. Pretty clean. I mean, that's paint bar nailed it exactly. And even what we were talking about before I had the other paint bar, same configuration. When that white crossing above, magenta dropping, turns into the negative move and continues to maintain itself as white MBI leads. The brief spike where it popped above, but that was followed quickly by the cross back over of white above red. And that's exactly what you're seeing on the daily right now. So if you don't recognize that that's going to have its impact. So this was all pretty clean action. Um, no real shock from any of that. getting a little bit of a return coming back up here, but you can see that NBI white riding. And I was always pointing out this move where you get these spikes of NBI gray. Once they get above that 33 and they start to roll over, they usually create a return. The question then becomes, how deep does the return go? And that usually becomes relative to how much strength you have in your NBI white. And usually when it remains above that 10 level, you're going to get a pretty consistent sell pressure. And you can see that maintained itself pretty well, except for that brief spot right there. And then it continued again. And as long as it stayed there, you get that continued drawdown. So it becomes pretty clear to see how that action relates to itself in price action. From an intraday standpoint, here we are in the post-market view, and you can see, again, this is that filling, and again, it's beautiful from an option standpoint because they just destroy the call buying that took place earlier and rip through it. The new puts get added into it, and that's why you see the little bounce coming back in here as those put buyers are going to be killed with the gamma on the little bounce back up. But is it sustainable? Not given what we're seeing from the readings at this particular stage. So we'll just continue to go with that. But I think that from that daily view, the bias has completely shifted now towards the downside. And that's just how it works. And we talked about this. My expectation was volatility was going to start to ramp up. And here you are. So beautiful stuff. As always, though, anything relevant, I'll put it on the Skype chat. Have a good one. Trade well.